So as we start today, let's tense our whole body, bringing all the tension of the day gone by and letting them go. 2 more times. Inhale, tense, make sure all 20 body parts are in this tension. Vibrate, relax. One last time. Relaxing completely, body, mind, emotions, everything, letting them go, offering them all to God and Gurus, bringing ourselves into the session today. Very important chapter, why we are all here for. So relaxing the body, spine straight, gazing up at the spiritual eye. Let's pray together. Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, great masters of Kriya Yoga, Jesus Christ, Babaji, Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, beloved Gurudeva, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints and sages of all religions, dear friend and guide, Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow at thy feet. O great masters of Kriya Yoga, help us to tune into thy teachings, into this ancient teachings of Kriya Yoga, the technique that brings liberation. Help us to progress faster on this path. Guide us every step of the way. Help us to be liberated in this lifetime itself. We are thine. Bring us home. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Today, this is such an important chapter. The whole crux of why we are here today is the Kriya Yoga path, for which Master went to the West. So this is the chant that we will listen to today. Is one of the favorite chants of Swami Shri Yukteswar, and it tells the whole story of why we need to find God. Why is the urgency there? So let's listen to this, tune into the words, and really ask God and Gurus to help us, guide us in this journey. We'll listen to the chant now.
Night and day, night joy, oh my Lord. Night and day, night joy, oh my Lord. What will be my fate? Oh Lord, tell me. Pranayam be thy religion. Pranayam will give thee salvation. Pranayam is the wishing tree. Pranayam is the wishing tree. Pranayam is the wishing tree. Pranayam is the wishing tree.
Let's just meditate for a moment with this chant. Telling us the importance of Kriya Yoga. With that, let's listen to Swamiji reading the chapter. There's much to discuss, much to understand in this chapter. So let's get into the reading right away. It's a longish chapter.
Chapter 26, The Science of Kriya Yoga. The science of Kriya Yoga, mentioned so often in these pages, became widely known in modern India through the instrumentality of Lahiri Mahashai, my guru's guru. The Sanskrit root of Kriya is Kri, to do, to act and react. The same root is found in the word karma, the natural principle of cause and effect. Kriya Yoga is thus union or yoga with the infinite through a certain action or rite. A yogi who faithfully follows its technique is gradually freed from karma or the universal chain of causation. Because of certain ancient yogic injunctions, I cannot give a full explanation of Kriya Yoga in the pages of a book intended for the general public. The actual technique must be learned from a Kriyaban or Kriya Yogi. Here, a broad reference must suffice. Kriya Yoga is a simple, psychophysiological method by which the human blood is decarbonized and recharged with oxygen. The atoms of this extra oxygen are transmuted into life current to rejuvenate the brain and spinal centers. By stopping the accumulation of venous blood, the yogi is able to lessen or prevent the decay of tissues. The advanced yogi transmutes his cells into pure energy. Elijah, Jesus, Kabir, and other prophets were past masters in the use of Kriya or a similar technique by which they caused their bodies to dematerialize at will. Kriya is an ancient science. Lahiri Mahashai received it from his guru, Babaji, who rediscovered and clarified the technique after it had been lost in the dark ages. The Kriya Yoga which I am giving to the world through you in this 19th century, Babaji told Lahiri Mahashai, is a revival of the same science which Krishna gave millenniums ago to Arjuna, and which was later known to Patanjali and to Christ, St. John, St. Paul, and other disciples. Kriya Yoga is referred to by Krishna, India's greatest prophet, in a stanza of the Bhagavad Gita, quote, offering inhaling breath into the outgoing breath, and offering the outgoing breath into the inhaling breath, the yogi neutralizes both these breaths. He thus releases the life force from the heart and brings it under his control, end quote. The interpretation is, the yogi arrests decay in the body by an addition of life force, and arrests the mutations of growth in the body by upon, eliminating current. Thus neutralizing decay and growth, by quieting the heart, the yogi learns life control. Krishna also relates that it was he, in a former incarnation, who communicated the indestructible yoga to an ancient Illuminato, Vivasvat, who gave it to Manu, the great legislator. He, in turn, instructed Ikshvaku, the father of India's solar warrior dynasty. Passing thus from one to another, the royal yoga was guarded by the rishis until the coming of the materialistic ages. Then, due to priestly secrecy and man's indifference, the sacred knowledge gradually became inaccessible. Kriya Yoga is mentioned twice by the ancient sage Patanjali, foremost exponent of yoga, who wrote, Kriya Yoga consists of body discipline, mental control, and meditating on Om. Patanjali speaks of God as the actual cosmic sound of Om heard in meditation. Om is the creative word, the sound of the vibratory motor. Even the yoga beginner soon inwardly hears the wondrous sound of Om. Receiving this blissful spiritual encouragement, the devotee becomes assured that he is in actual touch with divine realms. Patanjali refers a second time to the life control or Kriya technique thus, quote, liberation can be accomplished by that pranayama which is attained by disjoining the course of inspiration and expiration, end quote. St. Paul knew Kriya Yoga, or a technique very similar to it, by which he could switch life currents to and from the senses. He was therefore able to say, verily, I protest by our rejoicing which I have in Christ, I die daily. A footnote here, 1 Corinthians 15:31, our rejoicing is the correct translation, not as usually given, your rejoicing. St. Paul was referring to the omnipresence of the Christ consciousness. By daily withdrawing his life force, he united it by yoga union with the rejoicing, eternal bliss of the Christ consciousness. In that felicitous state he was consciously aware of being dead to the delusive sensory world of Maya. In the initial states of God contact, Sabikalpa Samadhi, the devotee's consciousness merges with the cosmic spirit. His life force is withdrawn from the body, which appears dead or motionless and rigid. The yogi is fully aware of his bodily condition of suspended animation. As he progresses to higher spiritual states, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, however, he communes with God without bodily fixation, and in his ordinary waking consciousness, even in the midst of exacting worldly duties. Kriya Yoga is an instrument through which human evolution can be quickened, Sri Yukteswar explained to his students. The ancient yogis discovered that the secret of cosmic consciousness is intimately linked with breath mastery. This is India's unique and deathless contribution to the world's treasury of knowledge. The life force, which is ordinarily absorbed in maintaining the heart pump, must be freed for higher activities by a method of calming and stilling the ceaseless demands of the breath. The Kriya Yogi mentally directs his life energy to revolve upward and downward around the 6 spinal centers, medullary, cervical, dorsal, lumbar, sacral, and coccygeal plexuses, which correspond to the 12 astral signs of the zodiac, the symbolic cosmic man. 1/2 minute of revolution of energy around the sensitive spinal cord of man effects subtle progress in his evolution. That 1/2 minute of Kriya equals 1 year of natural spiritual unfoldment. The astral system of a human being, with 6, 12 by polarity inner constellations, revolving around the sun of the omniscient spiritual eye, is interrelated with the physical sun and the 12 zodiacal signs. All men are thus affected by an inner and an outer universe. The ancient rishis discovered that man's earthly and heavenly environment in 12-year cycles push him forward on his natural path. The scriptures aver that man requires 1,000,000 years of normal, diseaseless evolution to perfect his human brain sufficiently to express cosmic consciousness. 1,000 Kriya practiced in 8 hours gives the yogi in one day the equivalent of 1,000 years of natural evolution, 365,000 years of evolution in 1 year. In 3 years, a Kriya yogi can thus accomplish by intelligent self-effort the same result which nature brings to pass in 1,000,000 years. The Kriya shortcut, of course, can be taken only by deeply developed yogis. With the guidance of a guru, such yogis have carefully prepared their bodies and brains to receive the power created by intensive practice. The Kriya beginner employs his yogic exercise only 14 to 28 times, twice daily. A number of yogis achieve emancipation in 6 or 12 or 24 or 48 years. A yogi who dies before achieving full realization carries with him the good karma of his past Kriya effort. In his new life, he is harmoniously propelled toward his infinite goal. The body of the average man is like a 50-watt lamp, which cannot accommodate the 1,000,000,000 watts of power roused by an excessive practice of Kriya. Through gradual and regular increase of the simple and foolproof methods of Kriya, man's body becomes astrally transformed day by day and is finally fitted to express the infinite potentials of cosmic energy, the first materially active expression of spirit. Kriya Yoga has nothing in common with the unscientific breathing exercises taught by a number of misguided zealots. Their attempts to forcibly hold breath in the lungs is not only unnatural, but decidedly unpleasant. Kriya, on the other hand, is accompanied from the very beginning by an accession of peace, and by soothing sensations of regenerative effect in the spine. The ancient yogic technique converts the breath into mind. By spiritual advancement, one is able to cognize the breath as an act of mind, a dream breath. Many illustrations could be given of the mathematical relationship between man's respiratory rate and the variations in his states of consciousness. A person whose attention is wholly engrossed, as in following some closely knit intellectual argument, or in attempting some delicate or difficult physical feat, automatically breathes very slowly. Fixity of attention depends on slow breathing. Quick or uneven breaths are an inevitable accompaniment of harmful emotional states, fear, lust, anger. The restless monkey breathes at the rate of 32 times a minute, in contrast to man's average of 18 times. The elephant, tortoise, snake, and other animals noted for their longevity have a respiratory rate which is less than man's. The tortoise, for instance, who may attain the age of 300 years, breathes only 4 times per minute. The rejuvenating effects of sleep are due to man's temporary unawareness of body and breathing. The sleeping man becomes a yogi. Each night he unconsciously performs the yogic rite of releasing himself from bodily identification and of merging the life force with healing currents in the main brain region and the 6 sub-dynamos of his spinal centers. The sleeper thus dips unknowingly into the reservoir of cosmic energy which sustains all life. The voluntary yogi performs a simple, natural process consciously, not unconsciously like the slow-paced sleeper. The Kriya yogi uses his technique to saturate and feed all his physical cells with undecaying light and keep them in a magnetized state. He scientifically makes breath unnecessary without producing the states of subconscious sleep or unconsciousness. By Kriya, the outgoing life force is not wasted and abused in the senses, but constrained to reunite with subtler spinal energies. By such reinforcement of life, the yogi's body and brain cells are electrified with the spiritual elixir. Thus he removes himself from studied observance of natural laws, which can only take him by circuitous means as given by proper food, sunlight, and harmonious thoughts, to a 1,000,000-year goal. It needs 12 years of normal, healthful living to effect even slight perceptible change in brain structure, and 1,000,000 solar returns are exacted to sufficiently refine the cerebral tenement for manifestation of cosmic consciousness. Untying the cord of breath which binds the soul to the body, Kriya serves to prolong life and enlarge the consciousness to infinity. The yoga method overcomes the tug of war between the mind and the matter-bound senses, and frees the devotee to re-inherit his eternal kingdom. He knows his real nature is bound neither by physical encasement nor by breath, symbol of the mortal enslavement to air, to nature's elemental compulsions. Introspection, or sitting in the silence, is an unscientific way of trying to force apart the mind and senses, tied together by the life force. The contemplative mind, attempting its return to divinity, is constantly dragged back toward the senses by the life currents. Kriya, controlling the mind directly through the life force, is the easiest, most effective, and most scientific avenue of approach to the infinite. In contrast to the slow, uncertain, bullock cart theological path to God, Kriya Yoga may justly be called the airplane route. The yogic science is based on an empirical consideration of all forms of concentration and meditation exercises. Yoga enables the devotee to switch off or on at will life current from the 5 sense telephones of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Attaining this power of sense disconnection, the yogi finds it simple to unite his mind at will with divine realms or with the world of matter. No longer is he unwillingly brought back by the life force to the mundane sphere of rowdy sensations and restless thoughts. Master of his body and mind, the Kriya Yogi ultimately achieves victory over the last enemy, death. So shalt thou feed on death that feeds on men, and death once dead, there's no more dying then. This couplet from Shakespeare. The life of an advanced Kriya Yogi is influenced not by effects of past actions, but solely by directions from the soul. The devotee thus avoids the slow, evolutionary monitors of egoistic actions, good and bad, of common life, cumbrous and snail-like to the eagle hearts. The superior method of soul living frees the yogi, who, shorn of his ego prison, tastes the deep air of omnipresence. The thraldom of natural living is, in contrast, set in a pace humiliating. Conforming his life to the evolutionary order, a man can command no concessionary haste from nature, but, living without error against the laws of his physical and mental endowment, still requires about 1,000,000 years of incarnating masquerades to know final emancipation. The telescopic methods of yogis, disengaging themselves from physical and mental identifications in favor of soul individuality, thus commend themselves to those who eye with revolt 1,000,000 years. This numerical periphery is enlarged for the ordinary man, who lives in harmony not even with nature, let alone his soul, but pursues instead unnatural complexities, thus offending in his body and thoughts the sweet sanities of nature. For him 2 times a million years can scarce suffice for liberation. Gross man seldom or never realizes that his body is a kingdom, governed by Emperor Soul on the throne of the cranium, with subsidiary regents in the 6 spinal centers or spheres of consciousness. This theocracy extends over a throng of obedient subjects, 27,000 billion cells, endowed with a sure, if automatic, intelligence, by which they perform all duties of bodily growths, transformations, and dissolutions, and 50 million substratal thoughts, emotions, and variations of alternating phases in man's consciousness in an average life of 60 years. Any apparent insurrection of bodily or cerebral cells toward Emperor Soul, manifesting as disease or depression, is due to no disloyalty among the humble citizens, but to past or present misuse by man of his individuality or free will, given to him simultaneous with a soul, and revocable never. Identifying himself with a shallow ego, man takes for granted that it is he who thinks, wills, feels, digests meals, and keeps himself alive, never admitting through reflection, only a little would suffice, that in his ordinary life he is naught but a puppet of past actions or karma, and of nature or environment. Each man's intellectual reactions, feelings, moods, and habits are circumscribed by effects of past causes, whether of this or a prior life. Lofty above such influences, however, is his regal soul. Spurning the transitory truths and freedoms, the Kriya Yogi passes beyond all disillusionment into his unfettered being. All scriptures declare man to be not a corruptible body, but a living soul. By Kriya he is given a method to prove the scriptural truth. Outward ritual cannot destroy ignorance, because they are not mutually contradictory, wrote Shankara in his famous Century of Verses. Realized knowledge alone destroys ignorance. Knowledge cannot spring up by any other means than inquiry. Who am I? How is this universe born? Who is its maker? What is its material cause? This is the kind of inquiry referred to. The intellect has no answer for these questions, hence the rishis evolved yoga as the technique of spiritual inquiry. Kriya Yoga is the real fire rite, often extolled in the Bhagavad Gita. The purifying fires of yoga bring eternal illumination, and thus differ much from outward and little effective religious fire ceremonies, where perception of truth is oft burnt to solemn chanted accompaniment along with the incense. The advanced yogi, withholding all his mind, will, and feeling from false identification with bodily desires, uniting his mind with superconscious forces in the spinal shrines, thus lives in this world as God hath planned, not impelled by impulses from the past, nor by new witlessnesses of fresh human motivations. Such a yogi receives fulfillment of his supreme desire, safe in the final haven of inexhaustibly blissful spirit. The yogi offers his labyrinthine human longings to a monotheistic bonfire dedicated to the unparalleled God. This is indeed the true yogic fire ceremony, in which all past and present desires are fuel consumed by love divine. The ultimate flame receives the sacrifice of all human madness, and man is pure of dross. His bones stripped of all desirous flesh, his karmic skeleton bleached in the antiseptic suns of wisdom, he is clean at last, inoffensive before man and maker. Referring to yoga's sure and methodical efficiency, Lord Krishna praises the technological yogi in the following words: "The yogi is greater than body-disciplining ascetics, greater even than the followers of the path of wisdom or jnana yoga, or of the path of action, karma yoga. Be thou, O disciple Arjuna, a yogi."
Wow, it's such an intense chapter. This is. So let us try to understand a little bit more than what we have understood so far. So let us start right from the start. He starts with the science of Kriya Yoga. It is not just a philosophy, it is a science. What does science mean? When we do experiments in the laboratory, science has what you are given certain things. There is certain environment that it needs, a certain temperature, a certain this thing. When all of it are perfect, then when you do that experiment, you will get this result, right? It is proven again and again. So you need a certain environment, you need certain temperature, you need certain ingredients, and that will again and again and again get proved if all these things are met, right? That is what science tells. So that is why Master uses the word science of Kriya Yoga, which means it is, you follow all these techniques the way it's being taught in this environment, you do it the way it needs to be done, and the result is self-realization. It's a scientific technique. There is no doubt about it. It is no mumbo jumbo, no philosophy. So he starts with the science of Kriya Yoga. So as we go ahead, it was brought back through the instrumentality of Lahiri Mahashaya, my Guru's Guru says. Again, here the Sanskrit root of Kriya is Kri, right? And it is the same root for karma also. But what is the difference? Both mean action, but karma is the outward action that binds us. Kriya is an inward action that a yogi does that unbinds us. That's the main, though the root is same, there's a big difference, right? That binds us, this unbinds us. That is the difference between these two things. Kriya Yoga is this union. Union, what is union? Yoga is reunion with God, with our highest self, with the infinite through a certain action, which is an inward action, right? Okay, so now we come to the next one, next para. Because of certain ancient yogic injunction, I cannot give a full explanation of Kriya Yoga. Now again, these days there are various kinds of Kriya. Some people say you come here, stay here with us for a week, we will give you Kriya. We don't know what they are. But what the Kriya Yoga we are following is what has come through Babaji, to Lahiri Mahashaya, through Shri Yukteswar, and through our Guru. And that has come to us. What our Guru has given. That is why he says it's not found. You can't go to a library, open a book and learn Kriya Yoga, because it is not just a technique. Okay, it is a pranayam technique. You do it in a certain way. But most important is when we get the Kriya blessing, right? It is a transfer of that energy from the Guru. You receive it. You come in that ray of light. He activates the spinal channel through which we move that prana, right? So that touch from the Guru is most important. Otherwise, it's just a technique. So it's not just the that will take us there, but it's the touch of the Guru. The Guru's the attunement to the Guru. That's very important. And that is why it is always received. Kriya is not just taught, it is received in a Diksha that we get at the Kriya initiation, right? So that is why it's very important. That's a difference between any technique, any pranayam technique that you can learn from any yoga practitioner versus what Kriya is all about. And he now says Kriya Yoga is a simple psychophysiological method by which the human blood is decarbonized and recharged with oxygen. So here, right now, he's talking about when we move that energy up and down. It's a pranayam. So we do use the breath to certain extent, and when we do that, there's more oxygen available to the body. When there is more oxygen available to the body, obviously the human blood is decarbonized, recharged, so the toxins are taken out. Body physically, how it helps the body, right? It helps in decarbonizing the blood, and obviously that makes it more diseaseless. The atoms of this extra oxygen are transmuted into life current to rejuvenate the brain and spinal centers, right? So by stopping the accumulation of venous blood, the yogi is able to lessen or prevent the decay of tissues. How does the yogi stop the accumulation of venous blood? So when the yogi is doing his kriya, at some point he reaches a state of, there is no need to breathe, right? He reaches a state of breathlessness. The heart, that is, later on also he talks about it. Heart in our life, it is constantly working. Even when we are asleep, heart doesn't stop. It's constantly working, pumping the blood. 88,000 tons of blood, if I'm not wrong. I might be getting it wrong. So the whole day, it is pumping blood constantly. So, but when a Kriya yogi doing his Kriya is able to stop the breath, the heart quietens down. When the heart quietens, it doesn't need to work, right? The body doesn't. So a Kriya yogi's body at that time, all the organs are in the state of animated state, of rest. Everything is, they don't need it anymore. So when all that energy that he has through his Kriya he has created, the life forces are freed rather than having to take care of all the organs. It is now freed. And that is when, it's freed, and then it prevents the decay of tissues, starts to rejuvenate those tissues. Because now it doesn't have to constantly keep the body going. So when everything is in a suspended animation kind of a state, the life forces that are free, they don't need to now continuously work. So they are free at that moment. They go to rejuvenate the tissues. That is why it prevents the decay of tissues. The advanced yogi transmutes his cells into pure energy. And he goes on to say that it's not just, in India, Elijah, Jesus, Kabir, all of them, the prophets, they were the past masters of the use of Kriya or something similar to Kriya, by which they cause their bodies to dematerialize at will and also to come back to life. As we all know, Jesus resurrected his body, right? Kriya is an ancient science. Lahiri Mahashaya received. So this is an ancient science where he goes on to say that, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I asked who gave to the first man, Manu. So it's been around for centuries, for eons it's been around. Right? But in those days, in ancient days, it was only given to, it was kept a secret and only given to people who have renounced this world, who have renunciated, the monks, the Raj Rishis knew it. And it was always kept a secret amongst them. And then came the Dark Ages where it got lost. Only knew about it, right? They were still practicing, but it was very few numbers because they didn't. There every age, even in Dark Age, there have been saints, there have been self-realized gurus who didn't belong to that age. They were far beyond that. So they knew it and they kind of continued to preserve it till in the 19th century. Like goes to Ranikhet and he's called back by he's been called back there, and Babaji, that's when he is so it's kind of revived the Kriya Yoga that we have learned is a revived one that Babaji gave to Lahiri Mahashaya. And since this is an ascending Dwapar Yuga, right? Spoken yogas. And that is when he said Lahiri Mahashaya he was not a renunciate, he was inner renunciate, but outwardly he was he was a married man, he was working as an accountant in railways. So this was to prove, Lahiri was chosen to prove that now is the age where an inner renunciation is what is needed. And that is why Babaji gave them that you can give it freely to people who are sincere seekers. So we don't have to go off to the Himalayas, become renunciates and sannyasis, and only then you will get. But you have to be an inner renunciate, and you really want to find why am I here? Why I want a way out. This doesn't make sense to me anymore. Anybody who's seeking that path out to be given this. So it is, as I said, it is an ancient technique, and what we have received, all of us, it's a most precious thing that we have received, and it's because of Babaji allowing Lahiri Mahashaya to give it. So we are not any renunciates out there here living in this life. We are working, families, and yet if we have been allowed to get Kriya, it's a treasure that each one of us has received, right? Okay, so I think we have gone through that, where Krishna also says, offering inhaling breath in the outgoing breath. And that is what, when we do Kriya, the whole life, what we are doing is, there are, as we know, that there is this deep channel, the Sushumna, and then there are the superficial channels that we call the Ida and the Pingala, right? And throughout our life, the life currents are flowing up through and crisscrossing, across the chakras. That's a much more deeper subject. I just touch upon it. And so we breathe in and we breathe out the whole time. As the energy goes up, we breathe in. As the energy goes down, we breathe out. And this keeps going on all our life. But a Kriya Yogi takes charge of his life force and moves it up and down. The Sushumna, what happens is the superficial channels come into the Sushumna, they merge into the Sushumna. And that is why he says, offering the inhaling breath, the Ida and Sushumna kind of come merge into the Sushumna. So we are offering the inhaling breath into the outgoing breath, offering the outgoing breath into the inhaling breath. The yogi neutralizes both his breaths. There's no need for outward breathing, breathing in and breathing out. As Master said, later on, he talks about it, that it is, you realize breathing is just a deep breath of the mind. Master said it is just a habit. Breathing is just a habit. A yogi doesn't really need to breathe. When he has done this, he reaches a state where he's not holding his breath. There is no. That is what is called the breathless state, right? So he brings the life force from the heart and brings it under his control. As I said, the heart is constantly working. It doesn't need to work anymore because the yogi doesn't need to breathe. Heart is at rest. Everything is at. He takes charge of that life force and he's able to bring it where he wants it. So he says the yogi arrests decay, that we have already seen why. How? By the addition of life force, and arrests the mutation of growth in the body by apan, thus neutralizing decay and growth by quieting the heart. The yogi learns life control. Okay, and Krishna, as we see that he talks about that I was the given in various things. Kriya Yoga is mentioned twice by the ancient sage Patanjali. He says, Kriya Yoga consists of body discipline, mental control, and meditating on Om. What is body? What do we have that our masters, what he has given our guru? Body discipline, energization exercises. So when we come to these level 1 classes, we are told, master says that Kriya Yoga, it's not just one technique, but there are these 4 techniques that make the path of Kriya Yoga. It's like 4 legs of a table. One is energization exercises that we are taught right from day one as we join. The second is Ongso technique, mental control, right? And meditating by level 3, we get Om technique. Meditating on Om, that's a third leg of the path of Kriya Yoga. And lastly, we get the pranayam technique as in the initiation, right? So Patanjali is talking about something similar. He talks about discipline, mental control, meditating on Om. He spoke of God speaks of God as an actual cosmic sound of Om heard in meditation, right? It's a creative word, the sound of the vibratory motor that keeps this creation, right? And then he says, the second time he talks to the life control of Kriya technique. Thus, liberation can be accomplished by that pranayama, which is attained by disjoining the course of inspiration and expiration that we just spoke about, how we do that, why, no need for this outer breath. As Master said that when I breathe, my energy comes up. When I breathe out, energy goes down. Whereas it's the other way around. When the energy goes up, it makes the lungs expand and the breath comes, we take in the breath. And the other way around for this thing. So again, pranayam, what he's talking about, liberation can be accomplished by pranayam. Master very interestingly said that pranayam is a condition, not a technique. We think, yoga, I do all these techniques. That is, we are indirectly, whenever you ask anybody, do you know what is pranayam? They say, yeah, I know, karte hai na, the breathing techniques. That is not, these are indirect way. Yes, they also help in indirectly achieving what we are trying to do, balancing that energy, but those are indirect techniques. What is pranayam is pran pe control, prana yam, control on prana. And what is the direct method that we have all got? Kriya Yoga, where the yogi directly takes of that life force, not using any indirect techniques. And as I said, that when finally a yogi achieves pranayam, as I said, Master said, it's a condition. Pranayam is a condition the yogi achieves, which is a state of complete control on the life forces. And again, he says, St. Paul knew Kriya Yoga. He says, I die daily. Why? Because he doesn't need to breathe when you are in that state where there is no breath. That is how he has used terms to mention that you try. Master says that's what he meant, that he knew something similar probably to what our Kriya Yoga is. Now, and then he goes on to explain the Savikalp and Nirvikalp Samadhi that we have read previously also in what he also explains. There are 2 states of Samadhi. One is Christ consciousness, where it's like, and seeing that, oh, I am that. And where cosmic consciousness, where completely the yogi merges in the cosmic consciousness. And there is no difference. He doesn't, even if they are functioning in this world, they're still in that state of being one with the infinite, right? As Master, I remember Swamiji said, it's shown in the answer also, that once Master is like, Swamiji had to hold, because Master was kind of walking like this. He was holding him and he would stagger at times and he would say, I don't know which body I am moving right now. So, I need to keep that in mind, because masters, the self-realized masters are in that state where they are cosmic consciousness and they use the body. I, the cosmic sea, watch the little ego floating in me, as Master said in the Samadhi poem. So it's like this, they are this huge cosmic consciousness and they just use this little ego of this body to keep this body moving. And they are not that ego, right? It's beautiful. That is why as we learn, go along the path, we are constantly being told of attunement. When we try to attune our will to our guru's will, what are we doing? We are attuning to that cosmic consciousness. then the guidance that comes to us is not from this little ego that is sitting at our medulla oblongata, but from that cosmic consciousness, from that intuitive guidance that we receive. So that's why attunement is a very important aspect of the path of Kriya Yoga. Okay, and Master says that Kriya Yoga is Sri Yukteswar says Kriya Yoga is an instrument through which human evolution can be quickened. And later on, somewhere Master says that it is an airplane route to God. Why? Because as Master says, that our astral spine, I mean, it's not like, when we die, we carry this astral spine with us, with all its chakras and all our likes, dislikes, our tendencies, our desires, our regrets, all distributed on that channel, right? And when we go from lifetime to lifetime, we carry it with us. And so, once Master Swamiji was talking to Master, and he asked, do we have to fulfill every desire? He said, yes. He said, even a desire for an ice cream? Master said, yes. So imagine, we don't even know what all we are carrying. How many, as Master said, millions of incarnations. We don't know how many incarnations we have lived, what all we are carrying. And if we have to sit and fulfill each, and it's not just fulfilling that, in that next one comes in. In just fulfilling this, we would have already, something else would have sprouted from there, and then something else sprouts from there. How long, right? So that is why he says Kriya Yoga. What are we doing? All these are there, and we are like moving this energy up and down the spine. And when we are doing that, it is like creating, it magnetizes the spine. And that's why those of us, I think all of us, most of us here are Kriya Yogis. And we are taught Mahamudra, and we are told that you should do Mahamudra every time you do Kriya. Why? Because in Mahamudra, what are we doing is we are opening the spine. We are magnetizing the spine, right? And after that, when yogi does the Kriya Yoga, it's like, you're bringing in more prana. This is getting constantly magnetized. And all of us who are constantly living, our all energy that comes into the body is constantly flowing out through our senses as we are functioning in this world. All that energy reverses and comes into our astral spine, into our sushumna. This becomes magnetic. And it is like, if you want to get an example or an elaborate, it's like, when there is this river bed with all the debris lying on the river bed, right? The sticks and dirt and mud and all the things that are lying there. And then it starts raining. And once there's a lot of rain that's happening, what happens? The river's flowing. And in that, it doesn't matter what mud is there, what stick it is, just takes it all along, right? That is what Kriya Yoga does. That, because if I were to sit and, say, oh, I have this tendency, this habit, I should work on it. And I'm sitting and working, probably it takes me 2 years. I finish that. I said, oh, finally, I have overcome this. Now let me try working on this problem. And I start concentrating on that problem in me that I see. I might not even know what else is there in me. By the time we're working on this might probably already be moving in the other direction. It's like the bar magnet. Swamiji always used to give the example of a bar magnet. The normal iron, why is it not magnetized? Because the molecules are, aligned in every which way. But when you place it next to a strong magnet, or you pass electric current, what happens? You pass the electric current unidirectionally, the molecules align in the north-south direction. The moment that happens, this magnet becomes magnetized. That is what the Kriya does. When we move that energy up and down, it magnetizes the astral spine in such a way that all that energy then starts moving unidirectionally along the way. All that karma, that desires, I don't even know, I don't even need to know what is it. It just aligns it in such a way that either they get roasted and burn away, or like the river that's full, the rainwater, full of water that's flowing, it just pushes it all out and brings it. And when that is the reason we concentrate at this point between the eyebrows, and then you just release it. release it, and you are free from all. That is why it is the, rather than me having to come back another lifetime, go through all the karma, it's just removing everything. That is why Kriya Yoga is there, is, as he says, instrument through which human evolution can be quickened. And Master said it's an airplane route to God. What is the time? You might not even finish. Oh my God, yeah. Hardly halfway through it. Okay, so let's try to rush through it. 1/2 minute of revolution of energy around the sensitive spinal cord of man affects subtle progress. The half minute of Kriya. So he's Master Swamiji and Master always used to say that one Kriya takes a good Kriya breath should take half a minute of revolution up and down the spine, right? Okay. And he goes on to explain the inner astrology and the outer astrology. So as he said, he talks about this spinal channels, the chakras. There are 6 chakras, but they have this positive and negative poles. So when, how does the karma come to us? It's like, these are all magnets. And when the time is right, when they look at this horoscopes, right? When the ye planet aapka yahan pe hai, that is why all the planets are here inside our spine. So when that time is right, when that it magnetizes that energy, that karma comes to us, and we go through it. And that is what he's talking about here. The astral system of a human being with 6-12 bipolarity, inner constellation revolving around the sun. And what is the sun? It is this, the spiritual eye. So when we say that, 1 year of revolution around the sun is 1 year of our life on this planet, right? Ek birthday gaya, do birthday gaya. What does a Kriya Yogi does? He brings that energy all the way, passing through all these inner constellations, the planets, and this is the sun, and then he takes it down. And in that process, he's finished 1 year of existence on this planet. So he talks about if somebody is doing 1,000 Kriya practiced in 8 hours, what has he done? Equivalent to 1,000 years of natural evolution. So if somebody has done 60 Kriyas, but these need to be really deep Kriyas, right? 60 Kriyas, 60 years of one lifetime is over. If somebody is doing 108 Kriyas, we have probably finished one lifetime in that one sitting of Kriya. That effective, that powerful is Kriya, right? He talks about with the guidance. This is very important. With the guidance of a guru, such yogis have carefully prepared their bodies and brains to receive the power created by intensive practice. And he talks about the body of an average man is like a 50-watt bulb, and the power of God is so much. We can't take it, right? And that is why a guru is needed. That's why he says the guidance of a guru. The guru takes us from wherever we are and he prepares us. He tones it down. Is like a guru acts like a transformer. He tones it down to a state where I am, and then he slowly works us to a state where I can become big cup to receive that ocean, right? So that is that is why we go through the almost 9 months of preparation before we receive the initiation, because most of us are 50-watt bulbs. We need to receive that the power of Kriya, and for that it needs some preparation of the body and brain to receive the power of intensive practice. And that is why when in initiation, the person is told to practice only 14, and then later on we increase it in numbers of 12. Again, he talks about that 12. 12 is the time period of spiritual evolution for every person. And typically the guru, the Jupiter, takes 12 years to finish one revolution. And in our inner constellation also we have the guru. That is why this 12 is very important. It's not a random number that our guru has given, 12 crore, 24 crore, 36 crore. It has a very powerful thing. So that is why the 12 number has been given to finish, to do a Kriya in particular numbers only has been given to us. Okay. And again, ancient yogic technique which converts the brain, we have already gone through it. Many illustration, person whose attention is wholly engrossed. So he talks about breath, why it's important to, Kriya Yogi, as we talked about him getting breathless after, his Kriya, doing his Kriya. When he's breathing less, he's extending his life, right? When you are, that's why he's talking about a restless monkeys breathe so many times, and so he has a very short life. Or an elephant or a tortoise which does very few breaths lives long. So why are we aiming to live long? Why does a Kriya Yogi is aiming to live long? To finish off whatever it is and get liberated. The more he's able to extend this, because we don't know where we are going to get born the next lifetime, if the conditions will be conducive for getting back on the path. So as well, if I have got this condition, I have got the ability, I have got a guru, I have got Kriya Yoga as well, extend it and finish it off. And that is the reason that Kriya Yogi aims, not because he wants to generally just live in this world. Okay, I think we are much past. Should we continue the next class? What do we do?
Yes, Jayanti, I think there are still many points we should discuss it more. Yeah.
I'm not liking the fact that I know I'm going one page after
I
that.
also
So I think
feel that this is so important, and what you are sharing is so deep that it's a good thing that we continue it the next time, because it will consolidate what we're doing today and the next time.
there'll be much to discuss, and we shouldn't be rushing for this. This chapter has to be really gone through, and I suggest everybody just go back to it and read, and let us discuss it really the next one also. It's really important for each one of us to understand. I don't want to rush at all. There's so much of it. So, okay. Thank you so much for joining. And do go back, and whatever points we have, the pages we have gone through already, discussed, go back and read through the week. Let that be our takeaway. We will read it. Okay, yes, sure. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. See you.
Thank you very much. Om Guru.
Thank
Thank
See you
you.
in the
Thank you.
morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.